I'm curious. There aren't so many women that play poker. It's like highly male dominated. Is this something you care about or are, want to change in poker or anything along these lines? Do you have any thoughts about this sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that one reason that I always stayed interested in poker was primarily because there were so few women that played, and it always made me think, I don't understand why that is, because I see poker as a game that's very gender neutral. I don't think that there's an inherent advantage or disadvantage that any person should have because of their gender to become great at the game. There's like no reason why there should be this disparity of like why a male player versus a female player, why they couldn't be equally as good if they had all the same resources, if they had all the time and put enough energy and effort into becoming really good. I think that society doesn't raise women in a way where women are willing to take big risks. So I think that plays into a little bit of why poker might not be as interesting for some women, because I think society has always taught women to be more of the conservative person when it's in terms of finances or, in a relationship. We're kind of there to like hold down the family, and then the guy gets to go out and kind of live their dream and pursue and take big risks. And we're just supposed to be the person to keep everything kind of going and grounded. And so because of that, I think that women just aren't shown that these type of skill sets are actually really beneficial in a lot of different areas of life. And obviously in poker, it's one of them. I think I've naturally always had a very aggressive attitude, and I've always kind of been really fearless in things that I do. And so that translated to poker, but I completely understand why most women wouldn't naturally feel that way or naturally gravitate towards that type of behavior, because society doesn't encourage it. And so I think that poker still has a long way to go in the sense of, how we are able to get more women interested in the game, because I believe that women can be just as good as men at the game. And right now it's just a numbers game where we just don't have enough women. So it obviously sense people like, well, if women can be as good as guys in the game, why is it that at a final table we just always see, 8 or 9 guys and there's hardly ever even one woman there? And I'm like, well, when there's only 3 to 5% of women playing, then naturally the odds of us getting to the final table is not going to be very high, simply because there's not enough of us playing. But if we put 50 male players and 50 female players, I feel like the number of, male versus men versus women that end up at the final table will be actually fairly equal and balanced.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a really a couple good points. I think, of course, when there's just all these dudes playing poker, what are you going to see? Is dudes mostly at the final table all the time. And yeah, I can see what you're saying about it's more like culturally implied that guys go out and get rough and like cause trouble and get into fights and stuff. And poker is like kind of has that element to it of sorts, so kind of the unconventional element. And women are like, I can see how it's definitely culturally, how do you say, a bit of a is it a stigma? It's just more expected of women to keep it cool and it's definitely indoctrinated that women are not supposed to to avoid all things awkward, like things like fights and stuff like that. I think too much, in fact. I kind of wish it wasn't that way, actually, but whatever. I prefer things to be real, and a little bit of conflict is okay. A little bit. I like a little bit of trouble. Okay, I don't like too much peace is a little boring. And in fact, the funny thing is, this reminds me. Ironically, there was this. I forget what it was called, but this one experiment with all these nations uniting and then basically and there being peace, but it ended up making them amorphous, and they actually became like irritated at that, which I thought was really hilarious, because it's like I guess they didn't really want peace then, after all, or peace in that sense.
Right.
I'm all for there being more women in poker. I have a thought also, is that I think the guys in poker, partly by being guys and partly by being people that tend to be more unconventional, aren't exactly creating an environment that is conducive to women joining, right? You want something to look nice. You want to be presentable, obviously, and you want to not be a dick at the table, and these kinds of things. This can definitely put off a lot of women, and definitely adds to the whole. Makes it more. It creates a bit of a barrier for many that want to play in the first place. Mm-hmm. The environment's just not good. It doesn't like. It's important with a woman to create an environment that is. You have to pay attention to the details, that the environment feels good, if that makes sense. That's
totally
a lot of them. And I think guys should really reconsider that for all sorts of reasons. And I wouldn't say that poker players are necessarily, the finest. How do I say? I feel like they could up their game a little bit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Dress a little better, and that kind of thing. Like, I'm guilty as well, and then I'm starting to realize, this might actually be a good idea. And maybe 95% guys, 97% guys, or whatever is a little bit. Yeah, I'd welcome some more girls to the game for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the environment for poker. There were so many times when I would have a bad experience, especially early on in the game, with the way that somebody treated me or something that they said that was really rude or crude. And I could have just walked out and never come back. But I have very, very thick skin. But I understand that not every woman would want to put themselves in that situation, So it's really easy for me to understand why some women will tell me that they'll go to a casino and it'll be their first or second time ever playing live. And they'll have a really bad experience and they just won't go again, because not only did they not have a good time, but they also lost money, right? Like, when we think about why people play poker, it's for a good social experience first and foremost, because most people are not doing it because they want to be a professional poker player. They're doing it because they enjoy the game and it's something that they like to do. But if you show up and you have a bad experience and you lose money, what is the incentive for you to ever come back? And so, I completely understand why some women will just be like, no, this is not a situation I want to put myself in again. And so I'm just not going to do it. And for people who say stuff like, oh, well, they just need to be tougher, that I think they're completely misunderstanding the issue. They don't need to be tougher to come and play poker when they're not doing it for a living. When they're doing it for fun, if it's not fun, then they shouldn't do it. And so I have a real problem when people say oh, well, women just need to accept that this is the environment that they're in, because I think that that's the type of attitude that you have if you are not empathetic at all to what other people's experience is like. It just, if you went and did something recreationally, if you went and I don't know what, played pickleball and you're just doing it for fun, but you have a really bad experience, why would you go back if you're not trying to make money? If your whole goal was actually, oh, this sounded like a good time and that's why I did it. Well, if you're not having a good time, then you won't go. So, I mean, I think it's pretty simple when it comes to that, especially for the recreational players. And even though there's some women that, of course, ended up pursuing it professionally and stuck it out, that doesn't mean that the experience was better or any easier for us. We just made the decision to stay with it for our own personal reasons, but that doesn't have to be everybody's choice,